Hello, I'm Barbara Field, and a marriage and family therapist in Sacramento, California. And welcome to my channel, The Journey of Grief, Becoming Us Without Them. And I started this channel so there's just a place for people to hear and talk about all the kinds of grief that people can sustain, maybe get some resources, some solidarity, and just understand that absolutely it's okay to grieve, and the way that you're grieving is the perfect way to grieve. And it's important that we talk about what they might call the disenfranchised grief that people don't bother to stop and do. Like pet grief is often described as disenfranchised grief. So today I've invited my friend Jeanene Desrosiers to talk to us about her brain injury and the very complicated grief process involved in all of that. And so, Jeanene, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about you?
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. It's always a pleasure having chats with you about all kinds of different levels of grief and all kinds of different grief. I don't think I ever explored it having this conversation one-on-one with you. So thank you for holding space and allowing me to share my story. So it gives people an opportunity to see that they don't have to stay stuck in that spot and overwhelmed by it all. But I am Jeanene Desrosiers. I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I own Essential Key Hypnotherapy. I have an office in Granite Bay and in Folsom. I have virtual clients as well. And really, brain surgery started my whole hypnotherapy story, my connection to it. It's kind of full circle. So that part I'm excited to share with people because there is light at the end of the tunnel.
That's great. So, tell us what you want us to know about what happened.
Hmm. Uh, Shoot, besides the chair just getting ripped out from underneath me, right? Which I feel like we all have those moments. But 2012, I had some debilitating headaches. They were really intense. I had had some previous issues with maybe some clotting in my past. And so I thought, oh, here we go again. Maybe it's like this little stroke from birth control pill and that kind of thing. Um, which, looking at the past of how medical teams cared for that, it was not taken very seriously, I don't think. I'd had like a small stroke and they just said, oh, just don't take the pill anymore. But there really wasn't any follow through monitoring. So when I had this other kind of episode come in, my doctor just sent me for an MRI. I was out of town on a Sunday, and on the way back, I went to a birthday party. On a Sunday afternoon, she left me a voicemail and said, oh, hey, real quick, I'm in the office for about 5 minutes. If you get a chance, call me back. You have a brain aneurysm. And this message was 2 hours after the fact. So I would love to help people deliver those types of messages a little bit gentler. Um, but basically, it sat on my optic artery. So it's a tiny aneurysm, but extremely difficult to get to. It wasn't big enough to put a stent or a coil in, so I was just kind of on a watch and wait. When I noticed my vision was changing, it was significantly decreased in my right eye and I had doubling vision. I went back in. My insurance company would no longer cover an MRI and would only cover an angiogram, which basically is going through your femoral artery in your groin and scoping up and measuring this tiny little measurements. Um, I didn't know. I saw interventional radiologist. We did several of those to keep monitoring how big it was getting. Once it got big enough that we could put um, the stent and the coil in within the artery without expanding and rupturing it. I mean, at that point too, um, when they don't give you an option because they can't go fix it, But if the aneurysm bursts, I would die, right? So they're like, go home and sit on your couch and don't sneeze. So I went home and I sat on my couch and I bawled my eyes out for about 3 days straight. And then I said, I'm absolutely not going to do this. I actually went out and bought a dirt bike and, was going to go for it. If something is going to take me out, I definitely don't want this to happen on my couch. I would rather be doing something adventurous, which is just true to my nature. Um, February 2014, I had the surgery to do the aneurysm. Again, my insurance company continued to deny MRIs. I did have to go have a second opinion by a neurosurgeon just to check all the boxes. Um, I feel like in the meantime, I started to build up that wall of protecting myself. Learning later, there were coping strategies that helped me at the time, but looking back, I kind of like, who was I kidding? I I wouldn't allow my mom to come to the second opinion with me. I thought I was protecting her because he was going to say, we're going to do a craniotomy in order to get to that. And I felt like I was protecting her by not allowing her to hear that. So I went to the appointment and he's like, oh, I would never touch you. You can go to the interventional radiologist. They can go through your femoral artery. Like, I'm glad you checked the box. See you never. So then February, I had the surgery for the aneurysm. And 7, 8 days later, I started to have these really bad headaches. So I called him back and said, hey, I know there's stuff in there and I know you did stuff, but the headaches are really intense. So he had me come in for a CT scan and turns out I had a brain tumor. And on that first MRI, there was not a head of that tumor. So to go back and do a comparison, it was literally one scan. The insurance company would never approve one again. So things happened really fast. Any kind of brain surgeries, you're usually on heavy duty anti-seizure meds, blood thinners, all kinds of stuff. Because I was on those medications and the tumor was fast growing, they got me back in to see the neurosurgeon, and he said, we just have to do surgery. This is fast growing. We can't mess around with this. Couldn't really biopsy it because if they went into biopsy, I was on the blood thinners, then I could bleed out, just different issues. So February to then April, I was going in for a craniotomy. Had to go have that other conversation with the neurosurgeon. My parents did come to that. I felt like I was already becoming really angry because I could not protect and control what was happening around me. And wow, the levels of the physical, mental, and emotional roller coaster. No one prepares you. I wish our medical world had the capacity to have people navigate and advocate for you. I was under the impression maybe I was just going to have a little incision up here because it was an olfactory tumor. So it sat behind my nose. So I lost almost all of my smell and all of my taste. And again, when you go to a surgeon, they are focusing on the surgical aspect of it, right? Not really, which I understand. Why give someone the whole worst case scenario of what can happen after the fact? But I was completely unprepared. When I came out from surgery, I was shaved about here. Had the worst mullet of my life. I Even being in the hospital and ICU was just a blur, a drug-induced kind of euphoric wow. Um, Feel like in a way though, that was the easier part. It was coming home, relying on people. At the time, I was a single girl with a mortgage. And I had already built up this wall. I've naturally always been adventurous, maybe a little tenacious, strong personality, right? I love to engage with people. I love to fight for the right thing, I guess. And I created an extra large image of that to feel safe. Because if I saw people worry, then it worried me. Um, in hindsight, I just pushed people away, not knowing, right? They wanted to help, and naturally the people around us gravitate in tighter to help. And when we build up those walls, we don't allow that to happen. And I think there is such a huge level of vulnerability within ourselves, because if we acknowledge it, it's real. Who wants it to be real? Like, let's pretend at the highest level, let's pretend that this is fine. Unfortunately, man, that sure catches up. And when it does, it leaves you angry, overwhelmed, lost. Uh, those coping mechanisms that you built to keep everybody out, they're not working. You have no idea where to grasp for new ones. Um, it's really, I feel like identity comes in so much because our identity constantly changes, right? Who we were before a diagnosis, who we are during it, and who we're going to find out who we're going to be on the other side of it, and who we become. Um, I can just keep going on and on if you want.
Yeah. So, um, just talk so more about that as you sort of descended. So fortunately, you were not totally unaware of the fact that there would be emotional consequences. So as the denial begins to crumble and yourself as this strong, impenetrable force that can handle everything and do everything and control everything crumbles, and you're suddenly this person who has had so much taken away and not even knowing, day by day, noticing, oh, my sense of smell, oh, my sense of taste,
Mhm.
oh, I have to take these friggin' medications. Just that, like you said, who I was before, who I was doing,
Mhm.
who I notice myself to be. And that's often where we can get stuck, focused on what's been taken.
Mhm.
And it often needs some help to get from what's been taken to, all right, well, who could I be anyway? And depending on the degree to which we were trained as children, just don't be weak, don't ask for help, don't be
Mhm.
vulnerable, don't bother people, don't show your weakness. It just gets so tangled in the process.
Absolutely. I feel like it gets wound and woven so tightly. Talk about identity. Like, where do you even start? Excuse me. I learned a lot about, um, it's that be strong, be stoic, I'm fine. Um, Realizing people around me, their coping mechanisms were something I could not understand, right? I had a friend say, "Well, you're going to die, so you can't be my friend anymore. So see you later." I was like, "Whoa, I have no." That was not in my mindset. I was in this mindset that I'm just going to do this, check this off my box, and move on again. Really categorizing everything, but the people's reactions prior to were hurtful, could not understand. And I didn't have the capacity to understand, right? Because I was on this such a short path from here to surgery. Um, but trying to navigate a lot of that, I feel like that made me stuff more stuff down, right? Of course. And then after, part of my identity after was going out in the world, I had long hair at the time, my hair to here. I remember my friend, we went to a barber shop on J Street to get the back cut off. And there was younger gentlemen in there that could not make eye contact with me. I wore a hat in, but when I had to take it off, I had this, big, fresh, I call it the shark fight, right? And that's where I started that because it felt better for people would come up to me in public and say, "Oh my God, what happened to you?" Like, shark fight, right? It felt better than having to say brain surgery. People like, "Oh my God, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, be careful of the ocean, whatever." Um, but that's kind of how I labeled it, made it something different, right? But seeing how people in the world would respond and act. When I remember when I went to the barber shop and I was trying to be incredibly brave. Uh, we actually went to the bar next door. I had a shot of whiskey before I went in because I could not believe this is where I was at in my life. And there were younger gentlemen in there, just like, I think if they acknowledged it too, it was real. There was an older gentleman that said, "Honey, I don't know what you've been through, but I'm glad you're here." I was like, ugh. In the parking lot, I would have people come up and say, "I don't know what happened to you, but I'm glad you're here." It was extremes, right? You could see people talking about you when you're sitting down, trying to figure out what happened. Um, it's creating how much more strength do you have, right? In those moments, how much more pretending can you do? And I felt like I was at capacity. I went back to work 6 weeks after surgery. There was a terrible, terrible communication issue with my surgeon. I should have been out for more than 3 months. I went back. I actually worked for a surgeon who was an incredibly terrible human being who would say every day, "At least it wasn't cancer, so get over it." I'm not trying to focus, like, I don't want to bring this in either. I'm not talking about it. I'm trying to pretend it's not happening. But I was at such capacity, I had no idea how to pretend anymore. I didn't know how to navigate people's emotions. I didn't know how to navigate my own. I had severe panic attacks, anxiety, debilitating migraines. I had sensory overload. I couldn't be in a room with lights on. I couldn't hear people talk. Um, like, that's all within me. It's not something people see. Hardest time of my life. And every time I went to a doctor, they wanted to give me another pill. And every pill had a worse repercussion. I went to my neurosurgeon and said, "I thought I have debilitating migraines 6 out of 7 days." And he said, "I don't treat migraines. Go see your primary care." Like, you cut a hole in my head. So I went to my primary care and she said, "Well, I can help with migraines, but not after brain surgery." Right? So you just get caught in this loop. Like, where do you go? Um, Extremely angry. Um, I worked at a surgeon's office. Part of my job was holding space for people. And when you're at capacity, that's hard, right? Sometimes it's a great uh, set your stuff aside, right? I don't want to focus on my stuff. Let me help you, like that part of it. But ultimately, I still had to wake up every morning and figure out how I was going to put my feet on the floor and go through the day. I couldn't get home fast enough. I isolated. Ironically, the office right next door was Sacramento Hypnotherapy, Maud Shellhouse. You know Maud, so this is how I met Maud. Um, Her office went in less than a year before. I laugh, talk about synchronicities, but she hung a little wind chime out on the walkway every day when I went to walk into the office. That wind chime was right in my way. And I was so mad at her. I didn't even know her, but I was so mad at her for putting that there because in my hyper focused world, that wind chime threw me off. It distracted me for all the right reasons, but I just wasn't open to seeing those at the time. But I went in and this amazing human Lily worked there at the time. She goes back and forth sometimes when she's in town. She works there. I walked in and I said, I have all these issues. I don't dream. I have panic attacks, severe migraines. I sensory overload. I'm out of my mind. Can you help? She goes, yep, we can help with that. Huh. Okay. With pills? She said, nope, no pills. Okay. And she said, can you come back in 2 hours? I have an appointment for you in 2 hours. I was like,
Wow.
um, yeah, okay. So I came back and I met Maud, and she gave me my very first hypnotherapy session. I didn't hear anything that she said. I don't know how she explained hypnotherapy. All I heard was, I can help you. I hadn't heard that in a few years. I can help you, and it's not going to be surgery, it's not going to hurt, and it's not going to be pills. But I was a huge skeptic. I'm like, it's probably not going to work for me. I don't dream anymore. And she was like, that's fine. And the first session was a lot of uh, memories of my grandmother. It felt very peaceful, but I didn't understand it. I had not been into balance for years. I had no idea what that even felt like anymore. It feels magical. It is kind of like magic when someone gives you those moments to let your mind relax and not get caught in the preparation of all the terrible things that are potentially going to happen in that day. That was the first opportunity. I remember going home and thinking, like, whatever. She made me appointments to come back, and I came back like 2 days later. And I felt like I had slept maybe for the first time, but my mind felt active and I hadn't dreamt and surgery. But I too was the skeptic. I don't think it's going to work. And she said, that's okay. Held my hand through it. Um, but she helped me slow down and not live in this panic of anticipating every terrible day. She allowed me to have light at the end of the tunnel, to see it. She held beautiful space for me. She's a great hugger. She's just an amazing human. She also gave me the gift to be able to lean on the people around me, share my fears, really what I was going through. Because when your hair starts to grow back, everyone says, oh, you must be fine. Your hair's growing back. Yeah, yeah, it's not what's happening. But that's people's safety, right? People say those things because if you look fine, then they're fine. And I totally understand that. I think that's what helped create this false identity for myself to put on the show and not share what I was going through. It's been a journey for sure. We were talking right before we started recording, and I had all the emotions, right? You think you've come to this place where you've healed, you've done the work, and then there's a memory. Now we're talking about it. And this is different than just joking about the shark fight. This is talking about it, you know. Um, my self grief is not the intensity that it was as I was learning to get into balance and ground myself, right? As time goes on, you find yourself in different situations and you think, this is weird, this is terrible. Oh, it's a result of this thing, right? I don't really go to concerts anymore. I wear all the earplugs. I do everything. I miss doing those things. I'm involved in off-road stuff. I help at motorcycle races. The intensity of that noise, I have a really hard time being around it, but I refuse to run away from it because it's still something I love. So I wears my earplugs. I do all the things. Part of those are those secret jabs. This sounds so petty. COVID, people were like, I lost my taste. They're like, you have no idea what it's like to lose your taste. I'm like, well, mine's gone kind of permanently, but it's fine, but that the level of people's coping strategies can feel extremely hurtful. But once we find our grounding and we know our truth and our peace, and we know that it is a journey, I think, at least for myself, I respond differently to those people. Every now and then, it sure gives me a good jab, but I still feel like I'm navigating that new part of myself, whatever this identity is. I do love when clients find me and they're going through a journey on their own. It may not be brain surgery related, but there may be a terminal illness, something really big battle that they're up against that they don't know how to even prepare for, or they're trying to, they're in the middle of it. Maybe they're towards the end of that journey for whatever reason. I feel like my journey has brought me here to help those people. It's a relatability, right? I might not have walked in their shoes, but I've walked in similar shoes. It's allowed me to hold a grander space for people and not tell them to get over it. Glad your
Or
hair,
say, well, please do.
yeah, glad your hair is growing back. You look fantastic. You must be all better, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so let's talk about anger because
Mhm.
it's so hard for us to give ourselves permission to feel everything we can feel. So I needed permission to feel anything that I felt, gradually being someone who can have feelings and not be all bad and stuff. But still, anger, I mean, being angry made me like my crazy mother or repulsive and disgusting. And but you have a lot to be angry for. Everyone, when parts of life are stolen from you against your will, I mean, some people are like, well, it was my fault because well, it doesn't even matter. The bottom line is I might have done something dumb to cause what happened to me,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, I'm gone. The version of me that, so it might be worse, that anger might be worse if I feel as if I really caused it. But the anger is the anger. So you didn't cause any of this. You were just sitting there minding your own business and it started to happen. And yet, like you've said, the self grief, the anger that who you may have become, who you might have been, got stolen away from you. And now you've begun to realize that who you're becoming is an amazing person who contributes to the world. But sometimes it's like, screw it. I don't want to be a better person. When my husband died, I don't want to be strong. I don't want to be resilient. I want to be a weenie and I want my husband back.
Mhm.
Don't tell me, oh, you're gonna, because I don't want to gonna. And so that whole screw all of you and this stupid idea, let's talk about that.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I love your honesty. And I love how you always share it from just like this raw, truthful place. So thank you. It does not go unnoticed. And I'm sorry that you understand that part of it, but there is in anger. I have broken some things early on. I often still, when I get really overwhelmed at capacity, I don't really break anything anymore. like might be a little done with that. But I think the breaking stuff is really just throwing a pin, grabbing something quick. You just don't know what to do, right? And our words can be hurtful. We shoot off at people not realizing, but we feel like we're defending ourselves. We're doing all of that, grand levels of anger. I felt very, very angry. I felt angry every time I woke up because I was like, oh, we're starting this day all over again. Are you kidding? Like I was, oh, resentful, of course. And it turns out my tumor, so it's a meningioma, which they believe is hormone based. So it may be because of the Depo-Provera shot, but nobody knows for sure. So do I want to be mad at somebody else? Sure. But did I sign up for that shot every 3 months? Absolutely. So there is a little like mad at myself, mad at them, because there are thousands and thousands of women with the same kind of brain tumor from Depo-Provera. Can we change the labeling? Can we stop using it? Can we do something? And then I thought I got to this point where I was, yes, I was finding more peace and balance in my life. Still angry because I am not working at the capacity that I used to. I could work in an OR, intensity, a lot of things happening. I thrived in that. I don't thrive in that anymore. I need more structure. I need quiet. I need consistency, right? And I grieve being that person that can juggle all the things and do it all, and it's loud and I'm doing it. I can do that for small moments, but I cannot do it as a daily career anymore. That's done. And I miss that part. That makes me angry. Um, Mid 50s, started seeing a naturopathic doctor, specializes in women's health and women's hormones. I am not an ideal candidate for hormone replacement therapy because I have this tumor that could be hormone driven. Wow, now we're at a place in the world where we're giving women all of these incredible options to naturally transition to another partner lives. And I can't have any of that. Like, yes, I just went through the last handful of months mad about that too, because I'm trying to figure out how to do this next part, but I can't use the tools that everybody else is given. Not that everyone's given them, but it does. It brings up moments of anger. It's kind of like, well, what else? Um, I feel like the anger is definitely turned down, right? But there's a part I I don't I haven't really explored it enough of where that anger, if it's anger, frustration, I guess it must be, of is it coming from somewhere or is that a part of my actual brain that is different? That my response is so quick and I don't know what happened. Because I've done a lot of hypnotherapy. I have I have done it. I love it. I'd have a session every day of my life if I could. I have graduated through so many different phases in my life of what that continually opens the next door of what else is to explore and heal and figure out your journey and your next steps. um I think that part, that anger part, feels very stored in my body. I wasn't aware of it until recently because I really thought it was all in my mind, right? It was however I was coping within my mind. I am not a somatics therapist, so I'm learning more about it. I met this absolutely wonderful woman, Joanne. She is Living Us Whole, and she is a spinal flow practitioner. And the first session, we talked about just my breathing. I never followed through on a breath. I never inhaled all the way and I never exhaled all the way. I lived in a state of panic, in a state of fear of what's next, right? And if you're not even breathing naturally and allowing that flow to truly settle you and balance you and release. Like, I had no idea. What I felt that was always still stored in my body is slowly releasing. I've done about, I think, 5 sessions with her and feeling how I hold myself. I hold myself more relaxed. I'm not holding myself in this protective, frozen body. I'm relaxing into who I am, discovering this next part. Um, it's amazing how we store that grief, that anger, that frustration, that overwhelm, all the things we don't know how to name and we don't know what they are. Like they're in our minds, but they are in our bodies. And I feel like for people that don't know or don't believe there is a way to release that out of your body, like, holy smokes, there is. There's modalities that don't require you to go through years and years and years of this terrible reprogramming or whatever. You can gently find places to lean in and start to release. For all the people that have been through all of those really, really challenging, if you're navigating your daily, how do I just do my daily things? And that's overwhelming and hard. And you think you'll never have a better day. You can, right? It's just finding those people in those modalities. I feel very fortunate, people that I've met, you including, right? Because we learn from each other, from the panels, we learn everyone else's experience because we're trapped in ours. And sometimes we're trapped with that wall that we can't see past it to really listen to somebody else's story and to realize that the parts are different, but they're all pretty similar. We're really experience those core emotions similarly. They're just from a different place.
That's awesome. That's so true, isn't it? So
Mm.
what's next? What do you see like in 5 years? What do you hope to have made friends with in 5 years? If
Um,
not quite friends with now.
the beauty of the unknown, right? I can't even begin to guess who would be coming my way. Um, this last year in particular, I have met amazing, amazing people who are willing to share their stories. Um, I've had beautiful clients who come to me. It's a familiar feeling where they're at. Um, guess it's a validation, but they recently I had someone ask if if I would be afraid to work with them.
Oh,
I said, no, why? She said, well, some people are just afraid to talk to me and look at me and acknowledge. I said, the world can be a terrible place, but I'm not afraid. Made me realize my space in the world, right? I envision Maud Shells and myself have many conversations about incorporating hypnotherapy and being a death doula, of helping people have a less fearful crossover, right? I feel like I'm at a place, I appreciate that. Um, I personally, I didn't fear dying. I was afraid of the damage I would leave if I died, but I didn't fear it for me. I I worried about my parents, people around me. Like, if we could take that fear and turn that down and let people immerse in the experience of the people around them, the situation, whatever, I think that's beautiful. So part of my 5-year plan is doing that. I would love to support more people with brain injuries, brain surgeries. It's kind of a very close-knit world because anytime you come into that, nobody wants to hear about modalities that are not covered by insurance and are not encouraged by their medical team. And I feel like that's so unfortunate because if people are caught in this system, and medications that are only treating the symptoms and not treating the root cause of why they're feeling that way. Wow, what a hard life. Like there are other ways to feel better. So I want to expand that reach and have people understand that you can thrive, not just survive it.
That's great. That's so true. It does what you see on the horizon
Mhm.
can so largely determine what you experience here on the plains, and helping people find some capacity now can help them believe in an increasing capacity in the future, but it's really hard.
Mhm.
And there are those body-based therapies like what
Mhm.
I do and what you do that can at least, I say, we create space. We just
Mhm.
try to get some of that. What the heck is that in my body? Get the kids out of there. So the grown-up has space to work,
Yeah.
but it's really, really hard. And
Mhm.
the most important thing is the relationships around us. But when we go into our shame, we cut ourselves off from the very
Mhm.
thing that will give us the oxytocin and dopamine that will help us to heal. So that paradox, that's kind of my focus, is helping people realize, of course you feel ashamed, of course you don't want help. And guess what? The best thing for you is to get help. So helping myself and others reach out
Yeah.
and get the oxytocin and dopamine that helps with the pain.
Yeah.
Okay, I thank you so much for
Mhm.
this. That was so brave, and your story is hard.
Thank you.
At the end of my videos, I always ask people to leave us with 1 minute wisdom, like the elevator speech for
Mhm.
brain injury. And so, what is the one thing that you wish people with a brain injury who are at the beginning of their healing journey could
Mhm.
just have in their pocket as they're going along?
Yeah. One of my like slogans or whatever you want to call it for my business is stuck to unstoppable. We can all get stuck. I mean, it's part of life, right? We get stuck, but we can get unstuck. And it doesn't really have to be incredibly hard. But if you think those are the cards that you're dealt and that's where you're stuck for forever, not true. Not true. Doesn't mean it goes away. It just means there is light at the end of the tunnel and you can move forward through it. You don't have to live in that moment of time for forever. And I would gladly help.
That's great. Okay, well, I will have your contact information in the show notes and any books or other resources that you recommend. So if someone would like to come and do hypnotherapy with you and create space for the grief that they have ahead of them, they can find you there. And
Thank you.
thank you again for being here with me. And I will see you later.
Okay.